Hi there, and welcome to Dork Wars Live. This is the first time that we have ever done a live stream for our podcast. I've been on a couple with the Red 5 Network guys. And speaking of Red 5 Network guys, I have Ro on with us from the Scarif Scuttlebutt podcast. How's it going, Ro?
How's it going, Blake? How is everybody, all you Star Wars fans? Happy Saturday night.
And we have Anthony, Rural Farm Boy, on Twitter. This guy has been a huge supporter of our podcast, retweets a lot of our stuff, listens to our episodes, gives good feedback. I've enjoyed having you on there. So, Anthony, how's it going?
RFB. Oh, it's definitely going. And I'll just put this straight up front for both ends because I'm pretty sure maybe you've seen it before. I've been in on with some other pod friends. Anything that I go and do in the Twitterverse ends with me. It starts with folks just like Blake and all the Dork Wars boys, Ro, the entire Red 5 network, and everybody else that you see that I post. And that right there is my playlist. Starts with Yins. And I do listen to each and every show. I hear every thought, every opinion from start to finish. And I literally go from one to the next through 7 days of a week. Everything that I hear, and I hear so much good stuff. And I'm like, I can't be the only one hearing this. So that's why I do what I do. Because Yins choose to sit down behind a microphone, share your thoughts, put it out in the world for folks. And I thought, I've been a listener for a long time of pods. And after a while, when you get listening to folks through once a week, sometimes folks are doing it twice a week, you get to know them as the folks that they are. You tell us about yourselves, but then us listeners, it's kind of like a one-sided conversation. I want to turn it into a two-sided conversation. So I can't do what I do if Yins don't do it first. That's why I do what I do. Ends with me. Always starts with you.
Very nice.
That's awesome. Anthony, we really appreciate your interaction with us on our social medias. We have some other folks that interact with us. That is the best part, I think, of doing a podcast, is being able to talk to those that listen to the show, being able to get their thoughts, what they think, and then we share our thoughts. It's a conversation, like you said. I like that format for a podcast and their listeners.
Yep.
So, Ro, tell us a little bit about Scarif Scuttlebutt for those on here who may not know who you are. I'm sure most people on here are probably from the last stream that you were doing just about 25 minutes ago.
Yeah, I see some familiar names up there, but if you guys are into deep dive and conversation about all things geek, Brad and I started Scarif talking about Star Wars only, but then we realized that we were nerds of other franchises as well, so we wanted to branch out and did a little rebranding. So we talk about everything from Star Wars to Star Trek, little Wonder Woman. We dropped a new episode this week with our new friend Comics and Cosmetics. So we do a little bit of everything. And like you said, and like everybody is talking about, just having a conversation, having fun, and sharing our thoughts and building a community with folks that like all this nerdy stuff, which is a lot of fun.
And I'll tell you what, the nerd culture, I like to call it, the nerd culture is really becoming the popular culture. And I'm all here for it. I remember in school, I was kind of, I liked all the nerdy stuff, the dorky stuff, and it wasn't quite as cool as it is now. It was getting there. But now it is, if you're a nerd, you're probably one of the coolest people in the room.
That wasn't always the case.
That's right.
No, sir, it weren't. Not for me and Ro. Nope.
Nope.
But let's get into some Star Wars. I do like to start with a little bit of news. Nothing too heavy. I just want to get your...
Okay. We're Star Wars and let's go.
Let's go. All right. He's got his hat on. Here we go. What was that? Oh no.
Change up, Ro.
No one told me.
Change up.
Nobody told me that we had hats. All right. See, I'm too new to Red 5. I don't have all the costumes yet. I haven't come in the mail.
We got you covered, buddy.
But I want to get your guys' thoughts on this new Kenobi series. We have a release date. It's coming out May 25th. We have some casting news. Rupert Friend as the Grand Inquisitor. We have Bail Organa, Jimmy Smits coming back. as Bill Organa. Some great news. What are your guys' thoughts on this new series?
I'm going to let Anthony go first before I change my hat again because I can't see.
My thoughts on what's coming for Kenobi. I'm gonna go right at this the same way I have since I was 13 years old in 1980 and seen the first next Star Wars story with Empire Strikes Back. And everything through where we sit now, 45 years, whatever's new coming next, tell me a Star Wars story. I don't have an expect. I don't have a want. I don't do predictions, and if I do, they are the barest minimal. I don't have any expectations. I can never be let down. Tell me a story.
Awesome. That's awesome. And I think we should probably all get into that kind of mindset. And we do a lot of predicting on Dork Wars, the podcast. We find it fun, and it turns out we are very rarely correct. But who cares? Everyone loves listening to it. So, Ro, what do you think about the new Kenobi series? Where it's going, what it's going to do? Just your general thoughts.
Getting back to what Anthony was saying, I remember, with my friends hanging out in the play yard, talking about the new movies and trying to figure out who's going to do what's going to happen. As kids, we talked about that stuff, and I think that's one of the reasons that makes podcasting fun is just kind of talking with your peers and saying, what do you think this show is going to be about? How do you think it's going to go? What would you like to see? For me, I do have some expectations, and as a longtime Star Wars fan, not unlike yourself, Rural, we like to. There's certain things that you want to kind of see. You don't go to a Cadillac dealership to buy a Ford. So once you walk into a Star Wars movie, you want to see some Star Wars related things. But that being said, I think with everything that has been spilling in the news regarding rumors and tidbits and casting announcements and things like that, I think it's gearing up to be something very exciting. Obviously, we have the news that John Williams is scoring the main title. I'm not sure if he's scoring everything, but he is. He just had a 90th birthday, so I'm sure he's slowing down a bit. But God bless his soul. It's one thing that all Star Wars fans from the left to the right to the middle can agree on, that Star Wars would not be Star Wars if it weren't for Mr. John Williams, the master himself. So I'm looking forward to it. May 25th. Are you here yet?
No, don't wish it here too quickly. Time passes on quickly enough. But yes, John Williams' music has defined many, many movie franchises. I mean, Jurassic Park, E.T., all unforgettable themes. When you hear those scores, you automatically know where they're from.
Absolutely.
And I think John Williams is instrumental in the success of Star Wars and the success of all of its movies. I mean, Duel of the Fates, oh my gosh, that is still some of my favorite orchestrated music.
That is divine intervention right there, brother.
It is. It very much is. So I am also pretty psyched for the Kenobi series. Just to see where it goes. There's some info. Maybe it's coming off of Tatooine. We're going to get some really cool stuff. And I'm like you guys. I want to see a good Star Wars story. I don't want to just see a flash in the pan. They just give us a bunch of sequences where we see familiar faces, familiar places, and things that warm our heart. I want a really good story. And that's awesome stuff. So let's go on and get into our main topic for tonight. I want to talk about the Book of Boba Fett Season 1, or just the Book of Boba Fett. We don't know if there's going to be a Season 2. I believe it was called a limited series, so I would guess it's just a one-off, but who knows. So general thoughts about the whole season. Now you can go into specifics, of course, specific episodes, but what do you guys think of the series as a whole? Just a quick summary. Let's start with you, Rose, since Rural Farm Boy went first last time.
Wow. How can I say this politely? To me, it was lackluster. And, before the series started, I on our show, I did say that I was going to be pretty hard on the series. I think after 2 seasons of The Mandalorian, that series was great. I think the growing pains were behind us as far as production, as far as behind the scenes, as far as what we will be seeing visually. And I wanted them to bring the A game to the Book of Boba Fett, not only because this would be the third Star Wars streaming show out there, but this is a fan favorite character from the original trilogy. And if they didn't bring their top game to the arena, then I for one would be able to tell. And unfortunately, the series as a whole for me, there were some really great moments and really wonderful story arcs that were presented, but they kind of stopped short of being amazing. There were some things that didn't make sense in my mind in universe. Some little details that are like, well, why did you do this when you could have done that? And again, that's speculation. But when I watch stuff like that, I want things to make sense in universe, because I enjoy it better, I guess. I don't sit there and scratch my head. I'm like, well, that's confusing. Why did they do that? So, but again, Boba Fett is a great character. The actor that played him was fantastic. We had some really amazing actors that accompanied him on this adventure. There's a lot of great stuff to really hang our hats on. But there's always a but. There's always a
There's always a
scuttlebutt.
This is a big scuttlebutt, right? It's a big butt, not just a regular butt. It's a big butt, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, Rural Farm Boy, your thoughts on the Book of Boba Fett? I guess series or season 1, whatever it's going to be.
Well, when we were shown early on some cast and crew merch that they were wearing that said the Book of Boba Fett season 1. So if they put it that way, there's got to be a reason for that. We don't know what that is yet, but we'll see. I'm not in a hurry to get there. But my thoughts on this here season as a whole, I love everything that it had to tell us from all chapters. I know some folks would call that being, I don't know if it would be rightly called an apologist. I just loved it for everything. It told a straight and clear story. If you were watching and listening to exactly what we were told, everything in there was done and told for a reason. I know like some folks were thinking, well, that's not really who Boba Fett was. And I think that's some of the folks might have been holding on to what was them their legend stories from the comics in the 90s. Yeah. And then through the middle of chapter 4, when he had that, I want to say it was chapter 4 or 5, when he had that 2 campfire talks with Fennec Shand saying he had had enough of working for folks who were going to get them killed. Yeah, he put that behind him and he went a different way, as we all tend to do.
Yeah, I can agree with that. And going back to what you said at the beginning, I didn't know there was merch that said season 1 on it. That's awesome. That's news to me. But a lot of people like to hold on to what they know. We know the EU.
Yeah.
We know that Boba Fett is just as bad to the bone, get down to it, bounty hunter. And he was that way in the EU all the way through. And some people get really mad when the shows and the canon doesn't turn out to the way they wanted to, or if they had a Boba Fett action figure back in 1985 and it didn't go the same way that they played it out in their mind. And I find that crazy because Boba Fett goes through a transformation. I'm not going to say that it wasn't, there were parts that I wish I would have seen more development on, but he goes through a transformation, and I think he's headed in a good direction. My only problem, or one of my only problems with the series as a whole, is the development. After episode 4, episodes 5 and 6, or chapters 5 and 6, were the 2 episodes about the Mandalorian and Grogu, Luke, and all that, which were great stories. I loved seeing those episodes. We saw some great sights, some great sounds. We got great world building. But I feel like it took away from Boba Fett's character development because at the end of chapter 4, he's got the Rancor. We haven't seen him spend much time with the Rancor. The Mod Squad, the Mighty Morphin Power Kids, whatever you want to call them,
The mods.
Sorry?
The mods.
Yeah, the mods. Yeah, I love colorful names. So I like the Mighty Morphin Power Kids. But they undergo a development because we see in the last chapter where they're all about Mos Espa. They're all about defending their home and all the people. The people are there in Mos Espa when they were very much rebels when first them much for themselves, trying to get water because they need it. They had very good reasons, but at the same time, it doesn't seem like they were very community minded at that time. And where's that transformation? I would have liked to seen that development.
For the
Any
mods,
thoughts
you
on
mean?
that? Yeah, the
For the
mods,
mods, you
Boba
mean?
Fett. Yeah, mods, Boba Fett. I just don't feel like we got all of the development that we needed to get them to the end. We got to the end and where they were supposed to be, but some of the steps we missed some of the steps in the middle.
And I think that's what I mean when I say that, you know, they seem to have presented some really interesting topics when it comes to characters and situations and growth, but it just didn't get there. Like, right. Oh, this is really cool. And you know, I'll give you an example. I always remember what Andrew said over at Coruscant Radio Underground. You know, there's some really great concepts with, you know, humans modifying their bodies, and you know, at that time, you know, people still didn't trust droids and machines and things like that. You know, we see that because of the droid you know, occupation, you know, in the prequels, right. and the turning of, you know, the government from that aspect. So there's a lot of like deep stuff there that could have been explored and was teased a little bit because, you know, folks really didn't like the mods in universe because of that reason. Like, oh my God, what are you doing to yourself? So, but it just didn't get to that yard line where we're like, oh, this is very thought provoking. I mean, for me, the whole series was, you know, and I think it was designed to be like this, but it was very animated series. It was very like, if you watch some of the early Clone Wars, there's a lot of like goofy little things like that kind of reminded me of the animated shows. And obviously, you know, we know who's behind it, but yeah, I guess we'll get there. But I'm rambling at this point.
Yeah, I'd like to take a look at Dave's comment here. You should see it at the bottom of your screen. I felt there was a couple of episodes missing. Maybe there were production issues. The Mando stuff seemed to be picked up from a possible Mando season 3 script and dropped there. And I really feel like this show was like half a season of 2 different shows shoved into one. Yeah. Like you have chapters 1 through 4 with Boba Fett's development, and despite what you think about those episodes, there was a clear story, there was a clear progression up to that point,
and it just stopped.
And it stopped for the Mando Grogu show. I mean, that's what happened, and like I said, I love those 2 episodes. I liked a lot of the sights, the sounds, the story we got, the Ahsoka Luke interaction. That's great stuff, but not in Book of Boba Fett. If there was a scene here or there with Mando where he's at and what he's doing, that's okay because we know we're bringing him into the show. But just to take Boba Fett out of basically 2 episodes of his own show and sacrifice his character development was too much for me, at least. It was too much for me. But moving on from that point, I did like a lot of the practical effects. I liked a lot of the sights we saw, the sounds, the everything. We see Black Chrysanthemum. Black Chrysanthemum is probably one of my favorite parts of this entire show. Like, he looks great, he acts great, his mannerisms are awesome. Like, he moves just like you think a Wookiee would move.
A Wookiee that size.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was a practical effect. I mean, to to display something that real was amazing. I loved watching him every second that he was on the screen.
Absolutely. Totally agree. I think the actor, oh, now I'm blanking out on his name. But yeah, he did a really great job. What was that?
Corey Jones.
Corey Jones, yeah.
Yep.
Gotta love a Wookiee. That's right, Dave.
Yep.
But yeah, you for folks that are unfamiliar with that character, he comes straight from the comic books, and it's great how Star Wars now we've got all this material to kind of pull from, and even through the animated series and Rebels and things like that. I know Filoni likes to pull little strings from the expanded universe and introduce it. Now we've got Thrawn, now we've got other characters. But it's really great to see, some of these things kind of tying into live action, because it is a big universe, and it just it makes sense that some characters from the printed page kind of cross over into the live action, because I think it would be a disservice to the storytelling overall to kind of leave the comic books over there and then the movies over here and then the TV series over here. I think, to make sure, and I know a lot of people say, well, it's a large universe. Why does Luke have to show up in everything? But, at the same time, when you go and you're working or you're doing your regular, life situation, you meet somebody, you see, oh my God, it's a small world. How many times have you seen that, heard that aspect? And, based on the universe or the activity that we're engaged in Star Wars, you're going to see familiar faces. You're going to see bounty hunters. You're going to see bad guys from time to time that you might have seen on another property, because they're all kind of working together. So it's great to see these characters kind of pop up, and it's wonderful when they get them right, like Special K.
That's right. I think they did a great job with Chris Anton. I think they did a marvelous job. I was a little taken aback when he was introduced one episode, then he comes and attacks Boba Fett in his sleep the next episode, and I thought he was gone. You see him kind of waddle off into the Tatooine desert, getting a space Uber to Mos Espa. I see Rural Farm Boy has a quick aside.
Yeah. No, I want to keep this stay on target. I'd like to speak to a thing. I'd like to speak to a thing that I've heard in my playlist I want to say about a month previous to where we saw Chapter 7, where folks were kind of carrying on and speculating about seeing Crimson Dawn might come and finish up. And I want to tell you why we didn't see that. And I learned this from a Star Wars author in my playlist. And I'll give him the shout out. It's Adam Bray, if you know who he is.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
That was in a live chat with Rule the Galaxy, Joe Molinaro and his crew. Adam was in there and was speaking to exactly how Star Wars publishing works. And why Crimson Dawn did not turn up there is because they have a current publishing story going right now in comics. Black Chris Hansen's story was done. That's how we got to see him. That's why we ain't got to see Crimson Dawn, because their story's being told in the comics. They're not going to cross over and do comics and live action in the same place. So that's why Crimson Dawn did not turn up.
And that makes sense.
One way or the other way, not crossed over.
Well, yeah, and I believe that's also the reason we didn't see Omega in this series. I know a lot of people are like, well, maybe he's going to find out about Omega. Well, her story is still being told in the Bad Batch. Like, we don't want to know where she ends up because we won't know what happens with the Bad Batch, right?
Yep.
That would be a spoiler in and of itself if she shows up. So,
Yep.
kind of along those same lines, of course, it's show to show instead of show to comics. But that's great information. Crimson Dawn is an awesome syndicate. They have a great story. I mean, with Maul and Kira, all these different aspects. And a lot of people had very good reasons to think Crimson Dawn was going to come in. I mean,
Sure.
I thought it would have been a good turn. And they point out all the symbolism, like the mayor's chair kind of looks like the Crimson Dawn symbol. The Crimson Dawn theme is played throughout the Book of Boba Fett theme. You can kind of hear tidbits of it in there. But that's
One
great
thing-
information.
One thing I'll say about Star Wars fans, like sometimes we like to really reach and find connections, and then when we're wrong, we're pissed off. You know, it's like, come on. It doesn't always have to rhyme.
No. Oh, Rose, you could only hear all the things I've heard.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I tell you, man, I've heard some crazy stuff. I've talked about crazy stuff before. I'm not going to say that I've never talked out of my head about what I thought would be really cool. Dave thinks that the Han rumors were wishful thinking. Of course, we all know that now. He didn't turn up, but it might have been cool. We had so many rumors of Han Solo. He was on set at Book of Boba Fett, and he had some kind of contract going on to come back as Han Solo. Those things were being kind of circulated in the rumor mill, and I mean, I saw people publishing articles about that as Book of Boba Fett was starting, and of course, it didn't happen.
No.
Would it have been cool? Possibly, but
Awesome.
yeah, kind of along the same lines as we were talking about earlier. With when the guys don't get what they think, then they get mad about it.
Yeah. Whose fault is that?
Yeah, that's right. Probably the person
What
who
did I
thought
say about expectations?
right.
But you know, the one thing that I remember thinking when I did start hearing about those Han Solo rumors, obviously at the end of season 2 of The Mandalorian, we got digital Luke Skywalker, which was awesome. And when I started hearing, and I didn't expect Luke to come back in the Book of Boba Fett, which he did
None of
through
us
The
did.
Mandalorian.
Yeah.
But, you know, once I started hearing the Han rumors, I thought, well, this is going to be interesting. We got Luke in the Mando series. We're going to get Han Solo in the Book of Boba Fett series, and what's next? Andor. We're going to get Leia in Andor. So I was thinking that somehow Filoni and Favreau were going to, you know, give us that treat of showing the original trilogy crew, you know, in each of the series, and then bringing them, you know, together somehow, because we didn't get it in the sequel trilogy, but bringing them together somehow, you know, if the story made sense at that point. But that didn't happen.
I'll tell you what, that would have been great. I think that would have been a cool move. We didn't
Yeah.
get that treat in the sequel trilogy. We didn't. We missed out on that, unfortunately. But Han Solo in this series would have made sense. I think they could have made that happen, but they didn't. And like you said, I don't think anyone saw Luke coming into this. I didn't see any of that. I didn't see any of the Grogu stuff. It was out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Once Grogu left with Luke at the end of Mandalorian season 2, I was like, well, we're not going to see Grogu again for a while. Like I was thinking
Sure.
that the entirety of season 3 was going to be the Mando story by himself, who he is separated from the child, you know, and it's not going to happen that way. But we were all pretty taken aback. So do you guys think that took away from the story? Did you guys like that kind of segue, or was it just too much for you?
Anthony?
Stayed on target for me.
Stay on target. That's right.
All right, your thoughts?
You mean the detour of seeing 2 episodes of Mando in lodged in there? You know, it was, and you know, here's the thing. You know, I've heard a lot of people say, well, it's the book of. You know, when you're reading a book, sometimes you go to another chapter where somebody else is doing something.
Right.
Oh, okay, that's fine. But it's not a book, man. It's a TV show. So I want
It's only
to, you know,
7 chapters.
right.
7 chapters.
And only really 5, because 2 chapters were dedicated to somebody else.
right.
But, you know, I think, oh, man, lost my train of thought. I don't like the fact that they kind of went, you know, there was obviously a fork in the road, and they went this way before they kind of joined the main story again. I think you're right. I think it did kind of take away from maybe a better fit for the narrative of Boba Fett and the growth of him as a character. But I think the early 4 chapters really had a lot to do with that, with his relationship with, you know, family, you know, found family, and the Tusken Raiders, and
Right.
and everything that was happening. And then all of a sudden it just derailed from then on. you know, obviously he got his revenge, and he took the slave one and shot down the bike gang, but that turned to be, you know, kind of a red herring there. But I don't know. It's the second half just really was, for me. The entire series was a bunch. It was a big mess, but the second half was like, what?
Yeah, it seemed that the story just was everywhere. It was just everywhere, and that's something I didn't care for. One of the things I didn't care for. So, moving on from a hot mess. Let's pull this up. I just saw this in the comments. A hot mess, and I can agree with that. It kind of left the story in a weird place when we catch back up with Boba Fett at the beginning of Chapter 7, because I mean that's the last episode,
Right.
the last episode, and we're just getting reintroduced to the characters. Like there's kind of like a period where you're kind of getting set back in, like, oh yeah, this is Boba Fett's story,
Right.
and that was one of my biggest gripes. Yes, Wesley has joined the chat. Wesley is a member of Dork Wars, the podcast. Great to see him on the chat. Maybe not in video, but at least on the chat. But what did you guys think about the Tusken Raiders? Ro brought those great people up a few minutes ago. I was not a fan of the Tusken Raiders before this, and now I'm like the biggest Tusken Raider fanboy out there. I love the look into their culture. I love the look into how they did things, like how they brought in family, and the way they're not just animals to be slaughtered like Anakin thought in Episode 2. So, Anthony, what do you think about that?
Well, the leader of that tribe said that not every tribe follows their thoughts and thinking. Some are killers, and that's what we seen when Anakin did what he did. Yeah, and I also feel that's also the tribe that jumped Luke and 3PO when they went out to find R2. Yeah,
Right.
they weren't nearly friendly either. So, yeah, I was a big fan of that. I had never had an expect to see what we were shown when they took him as a prisoner and ended up as a friend and family.
Yeah. I thought that was a great turn of events. I like seeing the Tusken
Really
Raiders
was.
in that light. And to, like you were saying, you said that the Tusken Raider tribe that jumped 3PO and R2 and the Tusken Raider tribe that got Anakin's mom, yeah, they were bad dudes, but this Raider tribe also took Boba as a prisoner without him really doing anything wrong to them. I mean, of course, we know he was a bounty hunter and this, that, and the other, but they didn't know that. They didn't see the OT. They didn't watch the movies. So
No,
they
and
took him as a prisoner.
I think just in my opinion that they did only as much as they had to do, just as Boba did only as much as he had to do. They don't go kill out of will. They do what they got to do when they got to do it. The same way that Din Djarin does. He only goes as far as he has to. The same way that it ended up in Chapter 7. Boba wasn't who we thought he was when he faced off with Cad Bane. He did what he had to do when he had to do it.
That's right.
Let's backtrack real fast because Dave,
Yeah.
I agree with you. But what was the reason that these Tusken Raiders tied Boba Fett to the tree as a prisoner, along with our friend
That's
Greedo
Greedo,
lookalike?
Greedo's brother.
Yeah.
Greedo's brother.
Okay.
The Rodian.
Yes.
Why did they tie them up? So we had the Jawas steal his armor after Sarlacc, and then they just left him there.
Mhm.
And then the Tuskens found him and then took him. Do we know why?
Yeah, I kind of agree with Ro here that, you know, you were talking about they do what they have to do. And I agree with that statement for the most part, except for where we see that they just take Boba prisoner because he's laying in the sand half dead. You know, why not take him and rehabilitate him, help him out, help him get on his way if that's the kind of tribe that they were. And that's that's one of my sticky points as well. That they just took him as a prisoner, and then when they did something that benefited them, now oh yeah, he's part of the tribe, he's part of the family.
Well, my thoughts, just my opinion,
Right.
is yeah, they kept him alive. They took him as a prisoner, and out with the Tuscan Kid and the Rhodian to make him go dig for black melons.
Right.
And by the end of chapter one, he proved his worth and then became part of the tribe. But
Right.
as a prisoner, it was for their benefit. By the end, he found his place.
So, yeah, Wesley saying in the chat that it felt a
Okay?
little rushed to him that the Tuscan tribe kept Boba as a prisoner, and then after the life death situation with the sand creature, Boba is welcomed in as part of the family. Yeah, I can agree that he had to show some worth. He wasn't a Tuscan Raider. I'll agree with that. He wasn't one of them to begin with, and then he showed, hey, he didn't have to kill that monster. He could have like probably got the chains broken. He probably could have made it off while it was eating on the Tuscan Kid. But he stayed and helped the Tuscan Kid, and that's what
Mm-hmm.
brought him into the tribe. So I can kind of see both ways on that. Maybe the Tuscan tribe they weren't the epitome of I'm going to take you in and rehabilitate you and send you back off into the world, but at the same time they honored Boba Fett for doing what he did.
I can see that. Yeah. And now I can see, that they were both captured to dig for the black melons. So I can
A little bit
see
bigger
that.
than lemons.
Yeah.
When life gives you melons. But Dave says that the most intriguing part of the show for him was the Boba bit, at least. But Boba's development felt a little short. I can agree with that, and that goes back to what we were talking about earlier. And then he says here maybe it had to be tested first. Yeah, they had to test his loyalty. Was he gonna help the tribe out, or was he just gonna double cross them later down the line? Who knows? But Real Farm Boy, you mentioned Cad Bane a few moments ago, and what a
Mm-hmm.
reveal when you see him walking in, the stranger from the desert. We didn't know what that title meant. We thought maybe
No.
it was Cobb Vanth. We thought maybe it was this, that, and other. No, it was Cad Bane. You see that silhouette when he's
Beautiful.
walking up.
Yeah.
Gosh, it was so good. The cinematography there was just spot on. It's one of my favorite scenes in the whole series.
Sean, if you're watching, it's the cinematics that got us all excited. Sean,
Yeah.
take note.
Oh, for Star Wars Extra? That's
Yeah.
Sean?
Yes.
All right. Yeah.
We have a
That's
little
Sean.
we have a little thing going with the fact that
Yeah.
initially I wasn't crazy about the series because it lacked the grand scope of shots. The wide shots weren't there. Everything seemed like kind of very narrow visioned. But we definitely got some great cinematics, like you mentioned. The Western feel of that particular episode. The introduction of Cad Bane was really fantastic, and I think they did a really good job of bringing him in. I wanted to pose a question to you guys because of what Dave said earlier regarding the development of Boba Fett and how people seem to feel like it was cut short. The fact that it was cut short and the fact that they also put in 2 episodes of The Mandalorian smacked right in there. And Blake, you were saying that it seems like it took them out of the moment to tell a little bit more story for Boba Fett. I've also heard from other podcasters that say that Disney just didn't know exactly how to tell this story, which resulted in the rushed feel. Also, it resulted in the truncated way of telling the story. I also want to pose a follow-up question to that regarding. I'm going to use the term, and I hope you guys don't take it the wrong way, but the Disneyfication of Boba Fett. And Boba Fett, obviously, everybody has mentioned that he is a badass. He's a bounty hunter. He's ruthless. Even Cad Bane said that Boba Fett is a ruthless killer who worked for the Empire. It's a character that is not very traditionally Disney, I will say. Do you guys feel that? And I'm sorry, I think I'm taking over your show here. Do
No,
you guys?
it's okay. No, go
Do,
ahead.
do you guys? Do
I
you
like
guys feel? Do you guys feel that that had any part in the way that this story was played? And obviously, Boba Fett seems like he's turning from one type of character to another. He's more, and not even anti-hero. He's like now he's like the good guy. He cares for the Tuscans and he
Yeah.
cares for this town, and it's very. And I think that's one of the biggest complaints that traditional Star Wars fans of the original trilogy and people that really like Boba Fett as a badass have an issue with. What are your
Yeah.
thoughts on that? Floor, take it away.
So I'll start on this because at the beginning, the very beginning, I'm talking about the end of Mandalorian season 2, the post credit scene. We see Boba Fett come into
Right.
Bib Fortuna's palace now, and just kill everyone.
Cold
There's
blood.
Fennec Shand
Yep.
kills everyone, and he just shoots Bib right in the back of the head, takes his throne.
Yep.
That was cool.
Right.
I do like that there is development for Boba Fett. He went through the Sarlacc pit. He had a near-death experience. He's looking at things differently. He has those talks with Fennec Shand by the fire about he wants to change. He wants to turn over a new leaf. He doesn't want to work for these guys that's going to get him killed. I get the reason for progressing his character, but to your credit, Ro, and Wesley says he likes the term Disneyfication. Great word to describe the Book of Boba Fett. I think he got a little too clean. Like I was thinking they were gonna go the anti-hero route. That he was gonna be not just a scumbag. He wasn't just gonna kill for money anymore, but he was gonna do what was good for him and his tribe. That was it. And now it seems like he wants to do what's good for everybody. He wants Tatooine to be this happy, fun place. He wants it to be the happiest place in the galaxy. He wants it to be Disneyland for the galaxy. It seems like.
And they did the same thing with Grief Karga.
Yeah.
If you
They
think
did.
about it, Navarro is like, oh, we're prospering now. Everything's fine. Come over, trade with our people. Hoo-hoo.
Yeah, and it's like everyone's like, oh, now that we're not strictly bad guys, now we're just the goodest good guys there ever were. And it's a very Disney line. I think you hit it right on the head there. There's good and there's bad. There's not really that middle gray area, And I think that's something that's lacking in this show. I would have liked to see Boba in that gray area a little bit where he's struggling. He doesn't really struggle with turning good. He doesn't struggle with his past as much as I thought he would. Like, as soon as he's in with the Tuscans, he's just a good guy now.
And I think Fennec Shand, she demonstrated that she was more Boba Fett than Boba Fett was.
Yeah. 100%.
She's a master
She was kind of like
assassin.
the devil. Yeah, she was
Right.
like the devil on his shoulder.
Yeah.
You got the angel and the devil on your shoulder, classic motif in a lot of cartoons, a lot of everything. And anytime that he had an idea, they said, "Why don't you come in on the litter? Why don't you come in on this big old thing, people carrying you?" And she's like, "Yeah, why don't you do that? That's what's been done this whole time. It's worked up till now. Just do that." And he said, "No, I'm gonna do the honorable thing." And just come around and talk. I actually like that version. I think that does play into he can be an anti-hero, good for his people. But just to your credit, yeah, she is more Boba Fett than Boba Fett. I can agree with that.
I walk on my own 2 feet.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Couple thoughts. I got a little bit of Marvel crossover in my playlist, but I'm not Marvel schooled, nor do I Marvel follow. But never once have I heard Disney Marvel
Right.
anyone say. So
Good point. Interesting.
I cannot say Disney Star Wars.
Yeah. That is actually a
Lucasfilm.
very good point.
Lucasfilm tells Star Wars. Disney gives them money. Lucasfilm tells Star Wars stories, just as Marvel tells Marvel stories. I don't think Disney has anything to do with how Star Wars stories are told. They just fork out the money and let the storytellers do their storytelling. That's
Well,
And
I
my
I
think,
opinion.
and I
I
think,
think go ahead, Blake.
well, I think that's true. I think you're right that Disney just funds it, but it's like the leadership. I know people don't like Kathleen Kennedy, and people don't like this or that, or they don't like the storytelling John Favreau's doing with Book of Boba Fett, or this, that, and the other. Who knows what links these stories are going through, who's making the decisions of where these characters are going, and I don't think it's
Oh,
necessarily
somebody
Disney.
knows.
Sorry,
Somebody knows.
well, somebody knows.
Somebody
Somebody knows.
knows. It's
It's
not
not me.
us.
But somebody knows. But
Yep.
to what Roe's saying, and this is what I think Roe's saying, that he's just been Disneyfied, not necessarily because of Disney. He's just been Disneyfied.
Yeah, and I think people use that term just to kind of differentiate, the legacy Star Wars to everything just of Star Wars and Lucasfilm to Disney. So there is a difference, and whether some people take it as a bad term, pejorative, that's in the ear of the beholder, but I think it's used for the most part just to kind of differentiate and to make a statement, I guess.
Yeah, and I can agree with that. A lot of people, and I know this is kind of sidebarring, but a lot of people do not like the Disney Star Wars because it's not the EU. And I get it. The EU is great. It has its bad parts. It really does. It has some lows, but it has some amazing highs. I love the expanded universe. I love Legends, whatever you want to call it now. Love all that stuff. But this is new. This is something that hadn't been done before. They're trying to get away from that, and that's okay too. But there's so much expanded universe. There's so many books. There's so many comics that play into that canon that Disney is nowhere near that yet. I mean, there's not the amount of information, there's not the amount of storytelling, and there won't be for years and years and years. There's got to be at least 100, 150 books that are the EU. I mean, at least.
200 plus.
Yeah, if I was going to say, if Andrew is still in the chat, the science fictionary, he
There
should
he is. What's up, guys?
he should know.
There he is,
Andrew,
Andrew.
let us know. He's a big book guy.
Me too.
Yep.
I love all those books. I've probably read at least 70% of the EU, I would think.
And it's interesting. Anthony, you brought something up earlier regarding everyone's perception of Boba Fett and their relationship of Boba Fett through the expanded universe, and saying that you just want him to be a badass because he was a badass in the expanded universe. And I was never an EU guy. I don't remember reading many expanded universe novels when I was a kid or younger.
Yeah.
As a young kid, I was just more focused in the movies, and then even in college. I mean, I love the fact that the books are out there. My attention span, I just can't, I'll read a page and then my mind will be over here, and then I'll be like, what did I just read? And I'd have to go back. So it's hard for me. But I know there's stories, there's some stories that are great. I think, the characterization of Boba Fett through non-EU also exists, and it also contains the terminology of him being a badass. I think the fact that he's a bounty hunter, what do bounty hunters do? It's, he's not a barista where he's a badass. No. He's a bounty hunter, and that entails having certain qualifications to be a bounty hunter. You have to be resourceful. You have to be cutthroat, ruthless, get things done. So there's an aspect of the word bounty hunter that has a lot of characteristics that go with it when it comes to Boba Fett as a character, whether you like the EU or not. I think he's still a badass, and I think that's probably why a lot of people are a little lukewarm on this series and how Boba Fett has turned out.
Well, and Fennec Shand, it seemed like she was running the show a lot of the time. Like she was doing the major lifting up until that last chapter, and even then, she did an amazing amount of lifting for Boba Fett.
Mhm.
But that's when he came into his own. That's when he starts fighting. He's going around the jetpack shooting. He rides a Rancor. That is total awesome Boba Fett. He faces off with Cad Bane. That's awesome Boba Fett. He sends the Major Domo out to pretty much tell the Pikes to get out of here. We don't want none of your stuff. If you stay, we're going to kill all of you. That's Boba Fett. And we got a lot of that Boba Fett in Chapter 7, but there was just no lead up to it.
Right.
And it just kind of, it fell flat because there wasn't any build up. He's been kind of this not I want to say pacifist. He's kind of stayed out of things, and he's let Fennec Shan do some of the fighting. He's let Chrysanthemum do his thing, and he's tried to rule with honor. But it seems like that wasn't enough. He had to get to the grittier side of his personality to get the results he wanted.
And I still don't get his motivation for ruling with honor.
Yeah.
Why did he want to become a boss to begin with?
Right.
And then at the end of Chapter 7, he's like, maybe this is not for us. What?
Yeah. And I really think that's just to set up them going off into the greater galaxy and being part of the Mandoverse. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
Well,
That's why
Fennec
we-
gave
yeah,
that.
our-
Fennec gave that answer with a question.
Right.
If not us,
Then
then
who?
who? Yeah.
The guy in the
Well, and-
flash, the guy in the flashback to tank.
That's right. The guy in the back to tank. And I agree totally with that. I really do. So one of my last things I want to talk about, I know we've brushed on Cad Bane. Do you like his introduction into the series? Was it too much to tie him in? Was this the perfect time to bring him into live action? How do you think he looked? Like, just what is your general thoughts on Cad Bane in this series?
For me, I think he was the perfect introduction. He was the best part of the series for me. And it's too bad that, spoilers, too bad that he, got taken out. But I think, supposedly. But I think he, if he does survive, I'm glad he does. But if he didn't survive, it would have been a missed opportunity to kind of use him as antagonist for anything else to come in the future. I think he's a great character. Obviously, fans of the animation know, his story. But casual fans don't. And it's great to kind of have him around to taunt Boba Fett even more and maybe test his resolve and make him more of a relatable character.
Yeah, and to Wes's credit, Cad Bane is the man. I love Cad Bane. I love him in Clone Wars. I love him in the Bad Batch. He played a very cool character in the Bad Batch. He was not there for very long, but did a good job. And like you said, the casual fans do not know who Cad Bane is. I've know people in real life who are just casual fans of Star Wars, people online when you're interacting in these Facebook groups, Twitter, that are just the people who watch the movies, people who watch the Disney shows. Maybe they didn't get into Clone Wars and Rebels. That's a little too much for them. But everyone that I've talked to said when Cad Bane came on screen, he's one of my new favorite Star Wars characters.
Yeah.
We saw him for maybe, 8-9 minutes total in the entire series, and he's people's favorite Star Wars character,
Right.
and they know nothing about him. He's that
Sure.
cool.
So I want to ask, and this includes the chat because we got friends there.
That's
Does
right. Come on,
anyone
Chad.
know who the character of Cad Bane is based on? And this is not per Dave Filoni. This is per George Lucas from the Clone Wars. Do you know who he's based on?
I
It's a
do, but
character
I'll let
from
the
a Western
chat.
movie.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll let the chat go because I know as well.
Yeah.
There's a clue.
Come on, chat.
Come on, we're
it's-
depending on you guys.
And
Come on,
while
Leslie.
the chat, while the chat is
Chatting.
thinking, I think the series really went all the way with the Western tropes, the style that Star Wars kind of introduced us to back in the day. I think they really nailed the way they they kind of married the genre. It just they hit it right on the nose. I think it was great. I think those the gun battles, the framing of the shots, getting into the production aspect, I think they were fantastic. It gave us something familiar to watch and something awesome to kind of relate to.
Yeah, I love the Western bits of this show. They were some of the most honest bits for me. They were some of the best cinematic events, like you were talking about earlier, Ro. When we get those wide shots, we have that wide shot of Cad Bane coming into Mos Pelgo, Freetown, whatever you want to call it, and it's a great scene when we have Boba and Cad Bane facing off in the town square. When we have Cad Bane and Cobb Vanth facing off in that's classic Western. The shootouts that happen that are real quick. I mean, that's classic Western, and they felt honest. They were some of the best parts of the series for me. What do you think about that, Anthony? And Wesley, you missed the question, but we're talking about.
I was watching. Apologies, I was watching the chat because Wesley said he missed the question. So I'll pose it again, Wes. Who was Cad Bane? Who was the character of Cad Bane based on from a Western? And Dave took a hint, and no, not that one. Rogue gave a whistle as a hint, and I'll give another hint that I just put in the chat from The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
We're getting
One
close.
of them three.
Well, I'll tell you what, this does tie into our episode when we talked about Boba Fett. We called it The Good, the Cad,
Yes.
and the Deputy.
Yeah.
So
Perfect.
that's another hint. That's
Yeah.
another hint. But yes,
We're coming up on an hour, so I'll just go put it out here right now. It is Angel Eyes.
Angela, that's right.
Lee Van Cleef.
Yep.
Monumental performance.
There we go, Dave Richards. Attaboy.
You guys see this before I do. It hadn't even popped up on mine yet. There we go. Boom. There it is. Lee Van Cleef. Yes, Angel Eyes. And like I said, these are some of my favorite parts of the series. So like Rural Farm Boy said, we're coming up on an hour. Actually, we are at an hour. And what are your final thoughts on Book of Boba Fett Season 7? Just a general wrap-up in a few words. Let's start with you, Anthony.
Well, as we were told previous, this is Mandalorian Season 2.5. So that, in my opinion, is why Chapter 5 and 6 fit into this story, because it was Mandalorian Season 2.5. We got no idea what we're going to be given for Mando Season 3. And it will surely tie into this because this has been thought about long and deep and hard. There's more chapters coming. And in my opinion, we're not ready for this. We weren't ready for this. And some folks were kind of let down, but there's more coming that pretty much I think is going to knock us on our asses. We're not ready for what's coming. We're really not. Because these folks are thinking long and deep and hard about what's yet to come.
I can agree with that. We have a lot of good setup. They set up a lot of good things. We have a lot of characters. Black Chrysanthemum's out there. Cad Bane may or may not be dead. He has a blinky light on his chest. Go listen to the podcast. All these Red 5 podcasts. There's a lot of speculation. You got the Mod Squad. They're out there. They're kind of left out in the wind. What are they going to do now? We have that good, feel-good ending for a Book of Boba Fett where all the crew gets together in the square and it's like, hey, we had a good job. We got rid of the Pikes, except for the Gamorreans who met a horrible death. But I can agree with that. So, Ro, your final thoughts on Book of Boba Fett Season 1.
I'm just waiting for LEP Service Droid, a Star Wars story.
That's right.
Nice. Love it.
I love it. And I tell you what, you hit it right on the head there.
I mean, we can go for another hour. Just, just keep it going, man. The chat doesn't need any sleep. Dave, I know, is in the UK. It's late over there. It's Sunday tomorrow. Come on.
Yes, I really do like where this. I like the setup. I like where the series is going. The series itself has its issues. We've echoed that. Farm Boy said it. Rose said it. I've said it. That there were some missteps. We should have got a little bit more development for Boba than we got. He got to the end. He got there, but we didn't see everything. So, Book of Boba Fett, I liked it pretty good. It had its highs. It had its lows. And I'm just excited to see what's coming next for the Mandoverse. So I'd really like to thank you guys for coming on. Ro, you just did a show. I know you're tired from doing that, man. You just been putting
I
in
can
the
talk
hours.
all night. I can talk
Yeah, I
all
can.
night Star Wars.
I'm the same way too. So it doesn't matter to me.
You guys
Ro,
want to
Farm
give it?
Boy-
You guys want to give it a letter grade like back in high school,
All right,
A
let's do
through
it.
F?
Well, Ro, you start out. Give it a grade.
I want to, and no plus or minuses, just a straight letter grade. I give it a C.
Okay, better than I thought. Better than I thought you'd give it. So Anthony, what do you got on it?
I do not rate nor rank any Star Wars story.
Come on,
whether
come
it's a
on.
book- No, I don't. I don't rate. I don't a movie, a book, a comic, and I don't follow the comics. I do not rate nor rank. So what I will do is say it was the last chapter that I watched, and I want to say it was this past Friday evening. I gave a watch to chapters 6 and 7 of Book of Boba Fett. That's the last that I watched. I don't rate nor rank. I cannot favor any other Star Wars story over another because I love them all the same. They're not my Star Wars story to tell. I'm being told a story. So my favorite was the last that I watched. That's how I go.
Anthony, do you have a favorite T-shirt? Do you have a favorite hat? You've got a couple.
This
Of,
is
That looks like his favorite
T-shirts
hat.
to me. T-shirts to me, Ro, and you're old enough to understand this. T-shirts to me are underwear. So
Okay,
my
gotcha.
favorite hat would be this one right here.
okay, but you do have a favorite hat, and it's a little imperial hat there. It's your favorite, right? Like out of all the ones that you own, that you like them all, but that one is your favorite, right?
And you'll wear them all. You'll wear all the hats. You'll wear them all in
I
public.
got this
Yeah, no
one.
problem.
You saw me start out with this one. Then I got this in here. Yeah, but this here's my favorite.
Okay, so you have many hats, and you just ranked something that you have many of, and
No, I
that's
just
something.
said my favorite.
Well, that's your favorite. That's a ranking. So, do you have a favorite Star Wars? I'm trying to get you to say something. Damn it!
You're trying to get him. You're trying to like put him on the hook for something like you can use later. You're trying to blackmail Rural Farm Boy at this point. It's getting a little crazy, but I can understand. I really love. I love the Book of Boba Fett for what it is. I like the story being told. I think it had missteps. I can rate Star Wars stories. I'm not going to say I don't. I will say it might not be the final grade because we do not know what comes after this. We don't know what's going to come of this series. Some of the things that were planted, we don't know. But on the surface, at the end of this season, I'm going to give it a C as well. I'm right there with Ro. I think it did a good job setting things up. I think it did a good job telling us the Boba backstory. That's some of my favorite parts. Is Boba with the Tusken Raiders, him getting out of the Sarlacc, him meeting up with Fennec Shand, and then my other favorite parts were episodes 5 and 6 that had nothing to do with Book of Boba Fett. So I can't really add those into the equation. So just a good solid C.
So I just want to take a moment to say this right here now because Dork Wars is a new one in my playlist. But Scarif Podcast has been in my playlist from the start. So, Ro, this has been a long time coming, and I'm glad that we got to chat face to face.
Very nice,
Awesome.
and thank you, and I appreciate it.
I'll tell you what. I'm glad that I was the vehicle for introducing you to because I'm such a new player to the game at this point. we've been going for about a year now. It's been great. I hooked up with Rowan Red 5 back in, I think, June-ish,
Mhm.
maybe May,
Yep.
June, July. And it's been great. The community is awesome. We actually had some battles this week on social media, and my Red 5 tribe came to my aid. It was great stuff. I tell you, man, just some of those Star Wars fans out there can get a little too into it. Dave Richards gives a D for Boba, A for Mando and Luke, and I think a lot of people probably feel the same way. So I'd like to extend a thank you to you guys. Thanks so much for coming on, Ro. Of course, always a pleasure. We've got to interact a couple times through the live chats and all, and it's always been a good time. Of course, I'm sure we'll be on your show again. I'm sure you'll be on ours. Rural Farm Boy, this is our first interaction face to face. We've been on Twitter and conversing back and forth. We've retweeted one another and looked at all of each other's stuff. It's been great. I'm glad to put a face with the Twitter profile. So thank you guys so much. And this has been another great episode of Dork Wars, the podcast. The first Dork Wars live. There's going to be more to come. You'll see more Red 5 hosts on here. You'll see some of our other hosts on here. It's going to be a great time. So thank you so much for joining us, and may the Force be with you.
May the Force be with you. Go give them your rate and review. They got mine.
That's right. Yeah, listen to Rural Farm Boy. And we're out.